The heavy wooden front door violently slammed open against the wall before I could even stand up. My name is Amelia. I am 26 years old, quietly living inside my mother's house located in Columbus. My older sister stormed furiously into the room while pointing an accusing finger directly at my face. Amelia is incredibly lazy, leaving the whole house entirely messy while just living off me, she yelled loudly. Our mother walked right behind her with a furious expression tightening every single muscle across her face. I immediately opened my mouth, attempting to explain the actual truth behind those completely ridiculous fabricated accusations. Before a single syllable escaped my lips, my mother immediately cut me off by raising her hand sharply. She held up her smartphone firmly while glaring at me with absolute disappointment burning in her eyes. I do not need to hear any more excuses because I took matters into my own hands. I secretly installed a hidden camera inside the living room vent to uncover exactly who the real freeloader is. My older sister instantly lost all the arrogant confidence she had carried into the room moments ago. Her face turned completely pale before she lunged forward, attempting to snatch the device right out of our mother's grip. Mom quickly stepped backward, avoiding the desperate grab while aggressively pressing the play button on her screen. The video started loading instantly as sheer terror washed completely over my older sister's pale face. Before we find out what this hidden camera actually recorded that day, please take a quick second to like this video. Subscribing to this channel truly helps us share more incredible stories with our wonderful audience worldwide. You definitely want to stick around to see exactly how this intense family conflict finally ends. The phone screen glowed brightly, displaying the video recording from 6 o'clock last Tuesday morning. Staring at that glowing digital timestamp instantly dragged my mind back into a flood of deeply frustrating childhood memories. My mother consistently dismissed my daily efforts around our childhood home, while simultaneously placing my older sister on a high pedestal. Sydney always received relentless praise for merely existing, while I desperately scrubbed floors hoping to earn a single nod of maternal approval. Mom firmly believed her older daughter possessed unmatched responsibility, while actively treating me like an incompetent child incapable of managing basic daily tasks. Our mother frequently rewarded Sydney with extra allowance money while ignoring the actual labor I completed behind closed doors. Watching the video felt like a direct continuation of that exact same unfair dynamic playing out in our adult lives. The digital footage began playing silently for a few seconds before the audio kicked in, revealing my early morning routine. My recorded figure appeared on the screen, walking into the living room while carrying a heavy plastic garbage bag. The glass coffee table was completely buried under greasy cardboard pizza boxes left over from Sydney's careless late-night eating habits. I bent down repeatedly to gather the discarded crusts, along with several empty soda cans while ensuring no sticky residue ruined the rug. After tying the trash bag securely, I carried the heavy load out the front door, before returning with a damp cloth to sanitize the stained glass surface. I spent nearly 40 minutes restoring order to the shared living space, while the person responsible for the mess slept soundly nearby. Following the exhausting cleaning session, the footage showed me opening my silver laptop directly on the kitchen counter. I pulled a thick stack of unread mail from the drawer while logging securely into the AEP Ohio online portal. The screen recorded my fingers typing my personal credit card number to clear the overdue electricity balance entirely on my own. Once the payment confirmation receipt appeared on the screen, I navigated toward the Municipal Water Service website to process another expensive transaction. I carefully typed in my banking details again to ensure our utilities remained active for the upcoming month. Every single transaction came directly from my hard-earned salary, without any financial contribution from the person claiming to financially support me. The video timestamp rapidly fast-forwarded through several empty hours until the digital clock hit almost noon. Sydney finally emerged from her bedroom wearing wrinkled pajamas while aggressively rubbing her tired eyes under the bright overhead lights. She lazily dragged her bare feet across the freshly vacuumed floor, without bothering to pick up the heavy winter jacket she had thrown near the couch. Walking slowly toward the kitchen island, she noticed the printed utility reminder notice I had deliberately left sitting prominently near the fruit bowl. She picked up the folded paper while squinting at the bold red total amount printed clearly at the very bottom of the page. Instead of reaching for her wallet to contribute her fair share, my sister let out a loud scoff filled with undeniable entitlement. She carelessly tossed the important billing document right back onto the counter without giving the financial obligation a second thought. Leaning her weight against the refrigerator door, she muttered a sentence that echoed clearly through the phone speaker directly into our quiet reality. "Just leave it. Amelia will have to pay it. Mom always takes my side anyway." She whispered while grabbing a pre-made sandwich from the top shelf. Those specific words hung heavily in the tense air while completely dismantling the fabricated narrative she had just loudly presented to our mother. Mom stood completely frozen in the center of the room while staring intently at the irrefutable digital evidence playing right in front of her face. Her previously tightened facial muscles suddenly went totally slack as the undeniable truth washed over her entire physical demeanor. Her eyes widened significantly while processing the undeniable fact that her older daughter never contributed anything toward our shared household expenses. The very person she fiercely defended moments ago had been actively exploiting my finances while simultaneously claiming the exact opposite right to her face. Mom lowered the phone slightly while slowly turning her head to look directly at the daughter who had just blatantly lied to her. The video footage continued shifting to an evening frame where I sat alone under the light casting from the kitchen area. I placed my smartphone directly onto the granite counter before deliberately dialing a specific number belonging to a renowned antique collector located in downtown Columbus. The speakerphone echoed slightly within the quiet room as an older gentleman finally answered my late-night inquiry regarding a highly specific piece of vintage jewelry. I leaned forward, resting my elbows upon the smooth surface, while carefully discussing the exact details of a rare, pristine Art Deco pendant originating from the 1920s. My mother had explicitly pointed out a strikingly similar necklace inside a dusty historical catalog several years ago, while mentioning how much she adored that specific design era. I asked the seller multiple questions regarding the authenticity certificates, along with the precise condition of the delicate silver chain attaching the main gemstone. The antique collector firmly stated a rather steep price matching the pristine condition of the requested jewelry piece, without offering any immediate room for negotiation. I did not hesitate or beg for a massive discount, because I fully recognized the genuine value of securing such a perfect present for her upcoming birthday celebration. I have steadily saved my own personal office salary over the past 7 months, specifically to purchase this exact item. I explained clearly into the microphone. I need you to know I am completely financially independent without relying on a single penny from my mother or my older sister to fund this expensive purchase. Those specific spoken words vibrated loudly through the current living room, while completely shattering the absurd freeloading narrative Sydney had confidently yelled just 10 minutes prior. I assured the downtown shop owner that I would arrive at his boutique the following morning, bringing the exact requested amount in physical cash. After politely ending the phone call, the security camera captured my hands, retrieving a thick stack of physical currency directly from inside my leather work bag. I spent several continuous minutes carefully smoothing out the slightly creased bills upon the kitchen island before counting the money for a third consecutive time. I separated the $20 bills from the 50s while organizing the entire stack to ensure the transaction would proceed smoothly the very next day. Once I verified the total amount was absolutely correct, down to the final dollar, I reached for a thick paper envelope tucked safely inside my daily planner. I meticulously slid the saved wages into the protective paper sleeve before picking up a black permanent marker resting near the fruit bowl. The hidden lens captured my hand pressing the marker against the paper to write clearly across the front cover of the sealed package. Those watching the screen could easily read the boldly written words spelling out "Mom's gift" right in the center of the white envelope. I smiled softly at my own handwriting before placing the hidden surprise safely inside my locked drawer to keep it hidden until the right occasion. The digital playback continued running while the heavy atmosphere inside the Cape Cod house shifted dramatically away from the previous intense anger. My mother slowly raised both of her shaking hands to cover her face while actively processing the undeniable reality of my quiet dedication to her happiness. Silent tears of deep regret immediately began rolling down her weathered cheeks as she absorbed the massive contrast between my hidden sacrifices alongside Sydney's vicious lies. She stood completely still while fully realizing that the daughter she consistently dismissed was actually dedicating her own hard-earned resources just to bring her a fleeting moment of joy. The woman who had barged into the house demanding answers now found herself weeping silently over the undeniable proof of my profound loyalty. Meanwhile, my older sister suddenly realized the digital recording was actively dismantling every single web of deception she had spun throughout our entire adult lives. Sydney began stepping backward slowly toward the far corner of the living room while desperately trying to avoid our mother's inevitable tear-filled gaze. Thick beads of nervous sweat formed visibly across her forehead as she completely lost her previous aggressive posture near the front doorway. She swallowed hard while nervously glancing at the smartphone screen, still tightly gripped within our mother's trembling hands. Her breathing grew noticeably heavier as she desperately searched the room, looking for any possible excuse to escape the rapidly collapsing reality closing in around her. The tense silence filling the living room was suddenly broken by a piercing telephone ring emitting directly from the recorded footage captured the following afternoon. The hidden camera lens recorded my older sister lounging carelessly across the sofa while holding her cell phone tightly against her ear. A muffled male voice coming through the speaker immediately identified the caller as her long-term boyfriend, Troy. Sydney let out a loud, mocking laugh while admiring her freshly manicured nails under the bright ceiling light. "You would not believe exactly how easy it is to manipulate this entire situation right under her nose," she bragged confidently to the man on the other end of the line. She reached down to pick up a brand new designer leather handbag resting proudly upon the glass coffee table. Mom completely forgot she added my name to her primary joint banking account 3 years ago, just to help pay the winter heating bills while she traveled for work. Sydney explained with a sickeningly sweet tone. "I just transferred another $1,000 this morning to cover the remaining balance on this gorgeous luxury purse." Troy chuckled through the phone speaker while asking if our mother ever noticed the rapidly shrinking balance on her monthly financial statements. Sydney simply rolled her eyes playfully while tossing the expensive leather accessory right back onto the couch cushions. Of course she noticed the missing funds last week when checking her retirement balances, my sister casually admitted without a single ounce of guilt present in her voice. The recorded conversation grew even more despicable as Sydney proudly detailed her manipulative tactics directly to her boyfriend. "Whenever Mom asks about the mysteriously disappearing cash, I just put on a deeply concerned face while whispering about Amelia's reckless grocery spending habits." She laughed loudly again while explaining how easily she convinced our mother that I was secretly siphoning money to buy expensive organic food, along with useless household items. "Mom literally believes Amelia is bleeding her dry financially while I am the responsible adult carefully managing the family budget," Sydney boasted triumphantly. Hearing those specific fabricated lies playing aloud finally broke the last remaining shred of maternal illusion, shielding my sister from facing actual real-world consequences. Standing beside me in the present moment, my mother did not shed another tear or utter a single word of disbelief. She immediately reached into her deep coat pocket, pulling out her second cellular device with shaking but determined hands. Her fingers moved rapidly across the glowing screen, bypassing the lock code to launch the secure banking mobile application. She navigated straight toward the joint checking account history, while her eyes darted back and forth between the digital ledger and the video still playing on the original screen. Every single withdrawal date mentioned in Sydney's sickening phone call matched perfectly with the large unauthorized deductions listed on the official bank statement. The $1,000 transfer for the designer handbag appeared exactly on the same morning Sydney explicitly bragged about it to Troy. My mother scrolled further down the digital screen, tracking months of consistent financial exploitation, hidden cleverly disguised as routine utility payments. She cross-referenced the dates of Sydney's lavish weekend trips with sudden spikes in ATM cash, withdrawals originating directly from the shared family funds. The overwhelming evidence proved my older sister had been systematically draining our mother's hard-earned savings while deliberately using my quiet domestic presence as a convenient scapegoat. I stood silently watching my mother's rigid posture stiffen even further as the sheer magnitude of the ongoing financial betrayal finally became entirely undeniable. Sydney remained backed into the corner of the room, watching her carefully constructed web of financial deception completely unravel right before her eyes. Mom continued scrolling upward to refresh the banking application, hoping to calculate the total amount of stolen currency. Her index finger suddenly stopped moving entirely while hovering frozen just above the illuminated glass display. The rigid tension in her shoulders spiked sharply as her gaze locked onto the very top section of the digital financial ledger. Her breathing hitched noticeably upon discovering a massive unapproved wire transfer currently sitting in a pending status awaiting final bank clearance. Someone had recently initiated a devastatingly large financial movement, draining nearly the entire remaining balance without securing her mandatory signature or verbal authorization. Before my mother could utter a single syllable regarding the massive, unauthorized pending transaction displayed on her banking application, Troy's deep voice, emitting from the recorded video, abruptly cut her off. The sudden shift in his vocal tone instantly commanded our absolute attention, while silencing the tense atmosphere suffocating the quiet living room. The muffled audio originating from the cell phone speaker shifted entirely away from frivolous luxury purchases toward a significantly more sinister topic of conversation. Troy cleared his throat loudly before mentioning a highly specific method designed to deliberately induce severe cognitive confusion without leaving any traceable chemical evidence behind during routine blood tests. He spoke in a chillingly calm tone while explaining how introducing unregulated dietary supplements mixed with potent sleep-depriving agents would easily make an otherwise perfectly healthy person appear entirely disoriented. Hearing this terrifying suggestion playing aloud forced my mother to grip the solid edge of the kitchen counter just to keep her trembling body standing upright. Instead of immediately rejecting the horrifying proposal designed to physically harm our mother, my older sister completely agreed with the sinister strategy, while eagerly adding her own calculated manipulative steps. Sydney began enthusiastically outlining a detailed daily plan to systematically document every single moment our mother appeared, even slightly fatigued, after working long consecutive hours. She instructed Troy to start secretly recording our mother using his smartphone whenever she misplaced her car keys or momentarily forgot a minor grocery item during their weekly Sunday visits. My sister callously explained how she intended to deliberately distort those perfectly normal human memory lapses by selectively editing the digital footage to present a severely exaggerated narrative of rapid mental decline. The recorded conversation continued detailing the precise next phase of their terrifying psychological manipulation campaign, targeting the exact woman who had provided them with endless financial support. Sydney proudly described how she would eventually step into the public role of a deeply concerned caregiver, desperately seeking professional medical intervention for her rapidly declining parent. She planned to schedule multiple emergency appointments with various private neurologists across the entire city while presenting the heavily manipulated video evidence directly to the unsuspecting medical professionals. Her ultimate objective involves securing an official medical diagnosis, confirming severe irreversible dementia to firmly establish a legally binding medical record, proving our mother lacked the basic mental capacity to govern her own daily life. Furthermore, my sister explicitly detailed her intention to actively prevent me from attending any of those future medical consultations, to ensure her fabricated narrative remained entirely unchallenged by dissenting voices. She told Troy she would intentionally schedule the critical neurologist appointments during my busiest office hours, while deliberately feeding the doctors false information regarding my alleged lack of involvement in our mother's daily care. This deliberate isolation tactic was specifically designed to paint me as an absent daughter, while elevating Sydney as the sole reliable source of medical history for the evaluating physicians. I stood completely paralyzed next to the kitchen island, while listening to my own sibling casually plot the systematic destruction of our mother's entire personal autonomy. My mother lowered her cellular device slowly while her breathing became noticeably shallow, as the sheer calculated cruelty of the premeditated psychological abuse washed over her stiffening body. She did not scream or cry, because the absolute paralyzing horror of realizing her eldest child actively plotted to drug her into submission had entirely stolen her voice. Meanwhile, Sydney remained trapped against the living room wall while desperately clutching her own elbows as her most terrifying secret was broadcast loudly into the painfully silent room. The recorded phone call slowly neared its conclusion as my sister summarized her flawlessly designed medical trap with a horrifyingly triumphant laugh echoing through the tiny speaker. Troy nervously asked if she worried about my potential interference once the formal medical evaluations officially commenced under the strict supervision of the state healthcare system. Sydney dismissed the entirely valid concern immediately, while boldly claiming I possessed absolutely no legal authority or adequate financial resources to challenge a board-certified neurological evaluation. She leaned back casually against the recorded sofa cushions before delivering a chilling final declaration that permanently destroyed any remaining trace of familial loyalty between us. Sydney confidently assured her boyfriend that once the official medical file became thick enough with certified doctor signatures, verifying severe cognitive incompetence, Amelia would have absolutely no legal way whatsoever to save our mother from their carefully constructed trap. Sydney's triumphant laughter ringing through the recorded footage slammed directly into the walls surrounding our quiet Cape Cod house, like a heavy iron hammer striking the tense atmosphere. The recorded audio rapidly transitioned toward the ultimate objective driving my older sister's deeply disturbing psychological manipulation campaign. Sydney began explaining her calculated legal strategy to Troy, while outlining the exact procedural steps required to successfully weaponize the fabricated medical documents within the local judicial system. She proudly detailed her intention to submit those manipulated clinical evaluations directly to the Ohio Probate Court, aiming to formally petition the presiding judge for a total declaration of mental incompetence. Her chillingly calm voice echoed through the speaker while explaining how this specific legal classification would systematically strip our mother of her fundamental civil rights. Troy asked a muffled question regarding the exact legal title she planned to acquire through this highly deceptive court filing. My sister quickly responded by confidently naming the specific legal authority known as adult guardianship, covering both the person along with the entire financial estate. She arrogantly boasted about the absolute power accompanying that specific court appointment, while mocking the judicial system for relying heavily upon properly formatted paperwork over actual truth. Sydney thoroughly explained how securing the official guardianship status would immediately grant her unrestricted legal access to completely dominate every single aspect of our mother's existence. The hidden camera captured her pacing excitedly across the living room rug, while eagerly listing the specific financial accounts she planned to seize immediately following the final court ruling. Her sinister monologue continued delving into the specific liquidation strategies targeting the very foundation of our family stability. Sydney explicitly outlined her immediate plan to place this beautiful Cape Cod property on the real estate market without ever consulting the woman who actually owned the physical structure. She then promised Troy they would seamlessly redirect the resulting property sale profits directly into their own private bank accounts to fund extended luxury vacations across Europe. The horrifying recording captured her eagerly discussing the immediate liquidation of our mother's carefully protected retirement fund, holding decades of accumulated financial savings. My sister casually talked about draining the entire 401k portfolio just to maintain a remarkably lavish lifestyle filled with endless parties, while our mother suffered in a cheap care facility. Troy suddenly interrupted the celebratory conversation, expressing a lingering concern regarding my potential interference during the probate court hearings. Sydney let out another mocking scoff before completely dismissing my quiet domestic presence as a completely irrelevant factor within her grand legal scheme. She confidently assured her boyfriend that the judicial system solely recognizes the officially appointed legal guardian, while completely ignoring any dissenting relatives lacking formal legal representation. According to her calculated explanation, Amelia would instantly become entirely powerless the exact moment the local magistrate granted the guardianship petition favoring the eldest sibling. My sister laughed aloud while picturing me standing helplessly outside the courtroom doors, lacking the necessary financial resources to mount a proper legal defense against her heavily documented medical claims. I stood perfectly still, watching my mother process the terrifying realization that her eldest daughter viewed her lifelong sacrifices as nothing more than a profitable stepping stone. Mom tightened her physical grip around the smartphone while her knuckles turned completely white under the intense pressure of holding the digital device. She stared directly at the glowing screen showing Sydney sitting comfortably on our furniture, while casually destroying our entire future for personal amusement. The undeniable reality of the situation hung heavily within the room as the recorded phone call finally reached its terrifyingly absolute conclusion. Sydney adjusted her position on the sofa cushions before delivering one final chilling declaration designed to solidify her total victory over our mother's independence. The hidden microphone picked up every single nuance of her cold vocal delivery, echoing out into the quiet space surrounding us in the present moment. She spoke with terrifying conviction while explicitly summarizing the absolute permanence marking the final phase of her carefully orchestrated legal takeover. Sydney stared blankly toward the opposite wall in the recorded footage, while verbally confirming the irreversible nature of a signed judicial decree. Her voice dropped into a lower register while confidently delivering a statement that completely shattered any remaining illusions of familial affection. She firmly declared that the very second the presiding judge officially signs the guardianship paperwork, our mother will no longer possess the legal right to make a single decision regarding her own life ever again. The recorded video finally ended abruptly while the darkened cell phone screen perfectly reflected three entirely silent faces standing frozen inside the living room. Our mother refrained entirely from screaming loudly or throwing any physical objects across the room to express her profound feelings regarding the betrayal. She simply lowered the electronic device slowly before turning her rigid physical body to face her eldest daughter directly. Mom stared deeply into Sydney's terrified eyes while speaking with an incredibly dry voice, entirely devoid of any maternal warmth. "How exactly long have you been actively preparing this specific plan against me?" she asked, without blinking even a single time. Sydney stood completely speechless near the wall, while her entire physical body trembled violently under the crushing weight of exposure. Her jaw dropped open slightly, but absolutely no defensive words nor fabricated excuses managed to escape her shaking, pale lips. She stared blankly toward the hardwood floor while nervously twisting her fingers together in a desperate display of absolute panic. That suffocating silence echoing throughout the hallway served as the absolute undeniable confirmation our mother required to finalize her immediate decision. Without waiting for a verbal response, Mom turned around firmly before walking straight toward the heavy wooden front door. She gripped the brass handle firmly while pulling the heavy frame wide open to reveal the freezing night air outside. The cold wind rushed immediately into the warm house while rustling the fabric of our winter coats hanging nearby. Mom pointed her index finger directly toward the dark driveway, while ordering her eldest daughter to vacate the premises immediately. Sydney attempted to step forward to beg for forgiveness, but our mother instantly raised her palm to block any further movement. Tears began streaming rapidly down my sister's face, while she desperately tried reaching out to grab our mother's rigid shoulder. "Step out of my property right this second before I physically force you out myself," Mom commanded with absolute unwavering authority. My older sister realized the situation was entirely hopeless, while slowly dragging her trembling feet across the hardwood floorboards. She walked past us, keeping her head lowered in total defeat, before stepping out onto the cold concrete front porch. Mom pushed the heavy door forward firmly until the locking mechanism clicked loudly to permanently separate Sydney from our household. The very second the deadbolt slid securely into its proper place, Mom lifted her smartphone again to initiate defensive actions. She quickly dialed the 24-hour customer service telephone number printed clearly on the back of her primary debit card. She tapped her foot impatiently against the floor, while waiting for the automated voice menu system to process her urgent request. After navigating the electronic prompts, she successfully connected with a live banking representative handling emergency fraud prevention cases for clients. Mom spoke clearly into the receiver, while immediately requesting a complete permanent lockdown on the supplementary credit card issued to Sydney. She explicitly instructed the customer service agent to permanently revoke all shared access privileges attached to her primary checking accounts. The banking representative asked several security questions confirming her identity before proceeding with the requested account restrictions on their computer system. Mom verified her social security details along with her current billing address to ensure the agent processed the lockdown immediately. She then specifically mentioned the massive unauthorized wire transfer currently sitting in a pending status awaiting final bank processing approval. Mom demanded the immediate cancellation of that specific transaction, while officially reporting the financial movement as a malicious fraudulent activity. The agent confirmed the suspicious transfer was successfully blocked, while verifying the total account balance remained completely untouched. Following the successful financial lockdown procedure, she opened her digital photo gallery to carefully back up the downloaded living room surveillance footage. She uploaded the digital video file directly into a secure cloud storage folder to guarantee the crucial evidence remained perfectly intact. Mom double-checked the upload progress bar on her screen to ensure the video file saved correctly without any technical errors. She placed the cellular device gently onto the wooden table before letting out a long, exhausted breath into the quiet room. She turned around slowly to look at me standing quietly near the kitchen counter, witnessing her incredible display of decisive strength. The previously tense atmosphere gradually dissolved into a quiet, mutual understanding, acknowledging the permanent structural shift within our household dynamic. From that exact defining moment forward, Amelia officially became the singular reliable pillar of support remaining in our mother's life. P8. 3 days after the front door slammed shut permanently separating Sydney from our household, bright sunlight shone directly through the fabric curtains inside Attorney Franklin's downtown legal office. Mom sat completely straight within the high-backed leather chair while confidently presenting her state-issued identification card to the senior probate lawyer sitting across the mahogany desk. She spoke with absolute clarity while firmly instructing Mr. Franklin to completely overhaul her entire comprehensive estate plan to accurately reflect the drastically shifted familial reality. The experienced attorney carefully drafted a legally binding, durable financial power of attorney document, granting Amelia absolute control over every single financial asset moving forward. Mom signed her full legal name across multiple dotted lines while simultaneously executing a comprehensive healthcare directive, placing her medical decisions solely under my authorized jurisdiction. She submitted the downloaded security camera footage directly to the legal firm, ensuring the digital recording remained safely preserved within their encrypted corporate database servers. Mr. Franklin officially cataloged the video file as undeniable medical proof, confirming her absolute mental lucidity during the exact moment she executed these sweeping legal changes. Mom systematically removed her eldest daughter from every single life insurance policy while actively designating me as the sole surviving beneficiary across all her retirement accounts. The seasoned lawyer stamped the final document pages while guaranteeing these ironclad legal protections would immediately block any future guardianship petitions filed by hostile external parties. Exactly 1 full week following the intense legal restructuring process, Sydney experienced the exceptionally harsh reality accompanying her sudden complete loss of maternal financial subsidies. Without our mother constantly funding her lavish lifestyle, the rebellious older sister quickly depleted her remaining stolen cash while struggling to secure basic daily necessities. She eventually secured a minimum wage janitorial position inside a severely neglected suburban shopping mall, where she spent long, grueling hours aggressively scrubbing filthy public restroom floors. Her previously perfectly manicured hands became severely blistered while aggressively pushing heavy wet mops across the sticky commercial linoleum from early morning until late evening. The grueling physical labor quickly shattered her arrogant entitlement while violently forcing her to face the devastating consequences resulting directly from her own manipulative greed. Unable to endure the exhausting physical labor another day, she desperately marched back toward the familiar Cape Cod property, hoping to manipulate her way back inside. She pounded heavily against the front wooden door while loudly sobbing into the quiet suburban neighborhood, begging desperately for a second chance to redeem herself. Mom slowly turned the brass deadbolt before pulling the heavy door open, just enough to look directly at the pathetic figure weeping loudly upon the concrete porch. Sydney fell dramatically onto her knees while clasping her blistered hands together, attempting to deliver a rehearsed apology speech designed to evoke familiar, maternal pity. She cried loudly about the severe physical pain burning through her exhausted muscles while promising to completely reform her deceptive behavior if allowed back indoors. Instead of offering a warm, forgiving embrace, Mom stared downward using an incredibly cold expression completely devoid of any remaining familial affection or lingering sympathy. She did not raise her voice or shed a single tear while silently watching her eldest child desperately beg for another unearned financial bailout opportunity. The older woman recognized the fake tears pooling in Sydney's eyes because she finally understood the true manipulative nature hiding behind those rehearsed emotional displays. Without uttering a single spoken word, Mom stepped backward into the warm hallway while firmly grabbing the outer edge of the heavy wooden door frame. She swung the solid door forward with incredible force until the lock clicked loudly while permanently shutting the treacherous daughter completely out of her life forever. The desperate sobbing outside the house gradually faded away as the cold reality of permanent banishment finally settled firmly upon the defeated older sister standing outside. Inside the quiet home, Mom walked slowly toward the kitchen area where I stood waiting patiently near the warm, glowing stove preparing our evening meal together. She wrapped her arms tightly around my shoulders, while silently acknowledging the immense domestic stability I had consistently provided, without ever demanding any special recognition. We sat together around the wooden dining table sharing a peaceful meal, while finally experiencing genuine mutual respect, completely unburdened by toxic sibling manipulation tactics. The once divided household finally found true harmony, while permanently resting upon a solid foundation built entirely through undeniable truth, alongside absolute financial independence.